The man who could win golf's biggest prize on his own birthday against the people he hates most. Before we go any further, I need you to stay until the very end of this video, because what happens at the end of this story is either going to be the greatest moment in the history of professional golf or the most painful proof that the sport is completely broken. You do not want to miss what's coming. If you're new here, this channel, Hoy PGA Tour, is where we break down the real stories behind professional golf. Not just the scores, the drama, the politics, the rivalries, everything the highlight reels leave out. Hit subscribe right now, turn on notifications, because what we're about to cover today, this is the kind of story that comes around once in a generation. The world number one Scottie Scheffler is the best golfer alive on this planet right now. That is not an opinion. That is a fact backed by 4 major championships, 19 Tour victories since 2021, 4 consecutive PGA Tour Player of the Year awards, an Olympic gold medal in Paris, and the longest stretch at world number one in the modern era of professional golf. The man is not just dominant, he is historically dominant. The kind of player who makes other great players shake their heads and admit they have never seen anything like it. And right now, Scottie Scheffler is walking into the most loaded moment of his entire career. Not just because the US Open is 1 week away, not just because a career Grand Slam, one of the rarest achievements in the entire history of sport, is sitting 1 tournament away from completion, but because the man is walking into this moment with something very specific to say about the people running professional golf, about the rules they are imposing on the players, and about whether the sport he has dedicated his entire life to is still rewarding the right things. This is bigger than a major championship preview. This is the world number one taking a stand against the very institutions that govern his sport, weeks before the one event that could define his legacy forever. The Tour in Chaos. To understand why Scheffler's voice carries more weight than anyone else's right now, you need to understand what has been happening inside professional golf over the last 6 months. It started at the very top of the PGA Tour. Brian Rollback arrived in 2026 as the new CEO, coming over from the NFL, and almost immediately began restructuring the competitive landscape of professional golf. Field sizes at full field events were cut from 156 players down to 144. Smaller events shrank from 132 to 120. And most controversially, the number of fully exempt tour cards was slashed from 125 all the way down to 100. 25 players who previously held guaranteed status on tour now have none. The official explanation from the tour? Pace of play. The players did not accept that for a single second. Lucas Glover, one of the most respected veterans on tour, was among the most outspoken. He told Golf Week directly, "I think it's terrible, and hiding behind pace of play, I think challenges our intelligence. They think we're stupid." Matt Fitzpatrick, a former US Open champion himself and one of the fastest players on tour, publicly backed Glover's position. He posted on social media that pace of play is spoken about every year and nothing ever gets done. And then Fitzpatrick went further, calling out the tour for what he described as an outrageous lack of actual slow play penalties throughout its entire history. The locker room was already on fire, and then the change came that turned a fire into an explosion. And this one did not come from the PGA Tour at all. This one came from above it entirely. The ball rollback. The USGA and the R&A, the 2 governing bodies that control golf worldwide, announced the golf ball rollback. Beginning in 2028, professional golfers will be required to use a ball that travels meaningfully shorter than the one they play with today. Official estimates suggest a reduction of around 12 yards. Independent testing has put that number closer to 15 to 20 yards. The stated reason is course preservation. Modern players hit the ball so far that classic and historic venues have been rendered essentially obsolete as genuine tests of elite golf. The reaction from the players was unlike anything the sport had seen in years. Justin Thomas delivered one of the most memorable critiques of any governing body decision in recent memory. He said his reaction was disappointment, and that, in his eyes, The USGA has consistently made selfish decisions over the years that are not actually for the betterment of the game, no matter what they claim. And then he went further. He drew a direct analogy. People are running faster. So what? Are they going to make the length of a mile longer so the fastest mile time doesn't change? Are they going to raise the NBA hoop to 13 feet because players can jump higher now? Bryson DeChambeau called it the most atrocious, uninspiring thing you could possibly do to the sport of golf. On the other side, Rory McIlroy publicly supported the rollback. He wrote that he doesn't understand the anger, that it will make no difference to the average golfer and puts the sport on a path of sustainability. The biggest names in the game were now split down the middle, publicly fighting each other over the future of their own sport. Now, here's where I need you to pay attention, because this is where Scottie Scheffler enters the conversation. And stay with me, because what I'm about to tell you about his specific complaints is going to make what happens at the US Open even more dramatic than you already think it is. Scheffler's real complaint. Scottie Scheffler does not operate like Thomas or DeChambeau. He is not bombastic. He does not chase headlines. When he speaks on an issue, he chooses every single word carefully, which is exactly why, when he speaks, everyone inside the ropes listens. His frustration is not really about distance at all. It goes much deeper than that. Scheffler's central belief is that the rules and setups of professional golf should consistently reward the best player, not introduce randomness into a competition that the greatest golfers in the world have spent their entire lives training to master. The clearest example of this came at the 2025 PGA Championship at Quail Hollow. The course was waterlogged from heavy rainfall. Officials chose not to allow preferred lies, meaning players had to play the ball exactly as it lay in the wet, muddy conditions. The result was exactly the kind of chaos Scheffler argues should never decide a major championship. He hit a perfect drive into the fairway on the 16th hole. His ball picked up mud. That mud ball sent his approach shot completely sideways. He made double bogey on one of the most critical holes on the golf course. Afterward, he said this, and I want you to really hear what he's saying here. I don't think they understand what it's like literally working your entire life to learn how to hit a golf ball, control it, hit shots, control distance, and all of a sudden, due to a rules decision, that is completely taken away from us by chance. In golf, there's enough luck throughout a 72-hole tournament. I don't think the story should be whether or not the ball is played up or down. When I look at golf tournaments, I want the purest, fairest test of golf. That quote tells you everything you need to know about how this man thinks about the sport. He does not mind a hard test, he minds an unfair one. The 2026 PGA Championship warning sign. That same frustration resurfaced just weeks ago at the 2026 PGA Championship at Aronimink Golf Club in Pennsylvania. Scheffler was openly critical of how the course had been set up, specifically the pin placements. He said directly, "This is the hardest set of pin locations I've seen since I've been on tour, and that includes US Opens, that includes Oakmont." He described one pin on the par 3 14th as among the most extreme he had ever encountered in his professional career. Justin Thomas echoed the sentiment. The consensus among the best players in the world was clear. The setup had been pushed past the boundary of difficult and into the territory of genuinely unfair. And here is what happened because of that setup. The leaderboard at Aronimink ended up historically bunched, 21 players within 3 shots of the lead at one point. The winner was a player who had entered the week at plus 7,500 odds. That outcome was exactly what Scheffler had been warning about all year. A setup that narrowed the gap between the great players and everyone else by introducing chaos rather than rewarding precision. The best player in the world walked away without a trophy. Again. Now keep that in mind, because what's coming next is where this entire story either becomes the most glorious moment in golf history or the most painful confirmation of everything Scheffler has been saying. the Grand Slam chase. Scottie Scheffler has 4 major championships, 2 Masters titles, 2022 and 2024, a dominant 5-stroke victory at the 2025 PGA Championship at Quail Hollow, and a 4-stroke win at the 2025 Open Championship at Royal Portrush, where he claimed the claret jug. Masters, 1. PGA Championship, 1. The Open Championship, 1. 1 remains. The US Open. In 8 career appearances at the US Open, Scheffler has never won. His best finish was a runner-up in 2022. He has contended, he has posted multiple top 10s, but the tournament has never bent to him the way almost everything else in professional golf has. The lowest point came at the 2024 US Open at Pinehurst, where he stumbled to a tie for 43rd and described golf itself as his mental torture chamber. If he wins the US Open, he becomes just the 7th man in the entire history of golf to complete the career Grand Slam. He joins Gene Sarazen, Ben Hogan, Gary Player, Jack Nicklaus, Tiger Woods, and Rory McIlroy in the most exclusive club the sport has ever known. And now, here is the detail that has the entire golf world absolutely buzzing. The 2026 US Open runs from June 18th through June 21st. That final round, the round where a champion is crowned, falls on Scottie Scheffler's 30th birthday, completing the career Grand Slam. Becoming one of the immortals, on the day he turns 30 years old, the stars appear to be aligning. But wait, because this story has one more layer, and it is the darkest one. The ultimate irony. The 2026 US Open is being hosted by the USGA, the very governing body whose ball rollback decision has had Scheffler's peers in open revolt for months. And it is being held at Shinnecock Hills Golf Club in Southampton, New York, one of the most brutal and unforgiving venues in the history of American golf. The last time the US Open visited Shinnecock was 2018. Brooks Koepka won that year at just 1 over par. The third round produced a scoring average above 75. Players walked off the course publicly calling the setup broken and unfair. This is precisely the type of environment that Scheffler has spent months warning the golf world about. Fast, punishing, operating right on the edge of chaos, where a bad bounce or an extreme pin placement can take a perfect shot and turn it into a double bogey. Scottie Scheffler is walking into a test run by the people he has been most critical of. On a course with a documented history of producing exactly the kind of luck-driven outcomes he has argued against all year. The central irony of this entire story is this: Scheffler's biggest complaint about modern professional golf is the single biggest threat standing between him and history. The betting market. Despite never having won the US Open, Scottie Scheffler enters Shinnecock Hills as the clear betting favorite, sitting at plus 460 to plus 490 on FanDuel Sportsbook, shorter than any other player in the field. Rory McIlroy, fresh off winning the Masters earlier in 2026, is next in the market at plus 800 to plus 950. Jon Rahm, who finished tied for second at Aronimink, is third at around plus 1,100. Scheffler's 2026 form justifies the favoritism. 1 win and 5 top 5 finishes in 8 starts, including 2 runner-up results in his last 2 tournaments. His game is building towards something. The timing feels deliberate. The Sportsline model, which has correctly called 17 majors entering this week, has flagged Ludwig Åberg as a serious dark horse. Åberg has finished in the top 10 in 6 of his last 7 tournaments, ranks second on the PGA Tour in total strokes gained and second in total driving strokes gained. He is not a name to ignore this week. The model also advises fading Xander Schauffele, despite his 20-to-1 odds, citing a quiet stretch since his 2 major victories in 2024. And there is one long shot, sitting around 31-to-1, that the model has flagged as a genuine contender. We will be watching that number closely as the week unfolds. The closing statement. Here is where everything stands. Scottie Scheffler is the best player in the world. He has publicly, repeatedly, and specifically criticized the way the institution hosting this tournament, the USGA, sets up golf courses. He is walking onto one of the most punishing venues those same people control. And he has his 30th birthday, a career Grand Slam, and a permanent place alongside the immortals of this sport, all riding on the outcome. If Scheffler wins at Shinnecock Hills on June 21st, he silences every doubt. He joins Sarazen, Hogan, Player, Nicklaus, Woods, and McIlroy. He does it on his birthday, and everything he has built over 5 years of dominance finds its perfect ending. If the setup bites him, if the USGA pushes Shinnecock to that edge of chaos he has been warning about, then everything Scheffler has said about the direction of professional golf will look painfully, undeniably accurate. Either way, Scottie Scheffler has made his position absolutely clear. The sport has heard him. The governing body has heard him. The whole world is watching. Now he has to prove it the only way that actually matters, with a golf club in his hands, on the toughest test the game can offer, against the people he does not fully trust to administer it fairly. June 21st, Shinnecock Hills. Birthday, Grand Slam, history. We will see you there.